Hello and welcome to the CoSM Podcast. In this episode, Dr. Delvin Solkinson and I sit down for a Gaialogue where we discuss his new book, Permaculture Design Notes, and how permaculture can change the way we think about nature, money, media, and economics. So let's get right into this episode with Dr. Del. Delvin, great to be with you outside in the CoSM nature field. It is blooming and beaming out here, and we're coming together to talk about permaculture. You recently published your amazing textbook, Permaculture Design Notes, and it's such a comprehensive guide to all things permaculture, and I thought we'd unpack that a little bit today, and in the process, learn a little bit more about permaculture principles. And so, whenever we invent something or whenever someone creates something, we create what we feel the world lacks. What is it about this textbook that you created that you feel provides something that the world of permaculture doesn't yet currently have?
That's great. It's so awesome to be here on this journey with you. Basho said, the journey itself is my home. And I really feel at home with you. I'm surrounded by the birds and plants here at the top of the meadow at CoSM. I want to say something about what permaculture is to ease into this, because the book is really a manifestation of permaculture. My mentor, Larry Santoyo, said, permaculture is about the beautiful simplicity of taking away what cannot be, decision-making and problem-solving protocols based on the patterns of nature. And in many ways, the book is that. It's a support system for people to make conscious decisions about how to take their life to the next level, about how to manifest the life that they really want, that's in alignment with their values and their dreams and their visions. It's what the world needs through this book is a essentialization of many teachings that have been passed on through indigenous teachings across the ages, through ecological science and teachers in the modern era. And there's so many different books and videos and expressions of permaculture. In many ways, what this is a concrescence of those teachings and books into one source. And here at CoSM, we really are about creative collaborations. We work with so many artists and artisans and people around the world. And the social sculpture, as Alison Gray calls it, is really a community creative collaboration. And the book is inviting so many different permaculture pioneers and visionaries and elders and teachers to collaborate on a collective clearinghouse for ecological and sustainability information, and also to provide a toolkit for people in their everyday decision-making about their lives. So at the core, I feel like what people always need, since we're all already designers of our own lives, is more structure and support and creative drivers to take that decision-making process to another level of alignment and connection with what we really want in a deeper way.
So this book really kind of connects things that weren't connected before, both subjects and the wisdom from great teachers. You've told me before that a lot of wisdom is kind of kept in oral traditions, and a lot of teachers, to hear what they have to say and to get the benefits of their wisdom, you really need to go to them in person and kind of hear it from the horse's mouth. But something you've done with this is kind of transcribing and saving that and archiving some of what before was only oral and now is kind of immortalized in this more solid material text format.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they say the best way to learn is to teach. And I've always sort of framed my learning journey as being a professional student. And I've taken all these courses all over the world at eco-villages and sat at the foot of all these elders, particularly in Europe and Australia and North America, and taken really good notes. And part of my integration process from taking these permaculture classes and teacher trainings has been to combine the notes into this offering, into this sharing, a free sharing. It's a free download online with other people about the gems and jewels and sort of key moments that have emerged through this ongoing process. The function of the book is my own learning, but it's also liberating all these other people to share their teachings outside of the oral tradition of an in-person class and into text. And in many ways, I see that's what the podcast is doing as well. I'm curious about your reflections on the function of this podcast in helping to liberate information and helping other people communicate.
Yeah, it's certainly liberation. I think materials like this and podcasting too, it's a massive democratization or kind of decentralization of information, where kind of wisdom can move more freely in the meme stream, and I think that's something about this book that you've done, which I think is really amazing, is you've made it a free downloadable PDF, which, for all of human history, that just did not exist. If you wanted knowledge, if you wanted wisdom kind of transcribed into a book, you needed a physical material possession of that book. But now with something like a PDF, with something like a digital document, this is one kind of button click away for anyone in the world. And I think that is a completely revolutionary way of distributing knowledge. So thanks. So where can people download this online?
This is the Visionary Permaculture program at CoSM is grounded at visionarypermaculture.com. And there's a bunch of free resources and podcasts and videos. And it ties into this larger mission that you're doing so amazingly of giving all of these people a voice, the teachers and leaders and visionaries and pioneers in different fields a voice. And that's another thing that hasn't really been around throughout history is the democratization of individual people's ability to share with a global community. So it's really a unique opportunity that we have both with the book and with the podcast to share information and to empower other people to share information that's part of a lineage that's been passed on and has been part of an oral tradition for a lot of history, as you say, but now we have the ability to kind of concrete it into these essentialized forms and accessible forms that are literally just a button push away.
Now let's get into some a little bit perhaps action steps. Like, what do you perceive as some of the problems that we're facing on an individual level, on a community level, and on a global level that you feel permaculture principles can be the solution to?
It's interesting with this emergence of planetary culture and the globalization of so many things. The shadow side of that is that a lot of fields of human endeavor that have always been radically local have been scaled up to a point in which they're no longer ecologically sustainable. And people have given up a little bit of their power by specializing in their careers, in their livelihoods, and no longer have basic skills about how to produce their own food and take care of their own needs. So in that way, permaculture is really an empowerment to individual people to skill up and to get really connected in their local area and to learn new skills so they can take care of themselves and each other, and also cultivate a local economy where people that live down the street are being directly supported by their neighbors, as opposed to this trap of having the corporate industrial machine being supported, which might not even be in the same country or even same continent where people live. So I think the solution that permaculture presents is the opportunity to radically relocalize, which is super connecting and super empowering to the individual in many ways. It's like a way of taking power back into your own life and cultivating your design skills and your ability to make decisions about fulfilling your practical everyday needs like food and medicine and companionship and health. That's really what permaculture seeks to provide for people.
Yeah. I mean, there's that classic proverb, I guess you can call it, which is think globally, act locally. And I think that's something that permaculture is really kind of calling us to do. There is, of course, we want to evolve into a type of planetary consciousness. We are on one planet. We are one species on one home. But at the same time, there's this dark side of globalism, globalizing the economy, where we get more and more separated from the means of production, more separated from our food, and more resources go into the hands of fewer and fewer people. These are all problems that seem to manifest with the movement towards at least a globalized economy. And I think that this has a lot of really downstream issues, even spiritual issues, because one of the things I think we're suffering from right now as a species is a disconnection from nature. And one of the most immediate forms of relationship we have with nature is through the food we eat. So how can we be connected to the natural world when we look down at our dinner plate and, the vegetables came from Mexico and the fruits came from Asia and the meat came from Argentina? It's like there are so many different continents of the world represented on one plate. And that's just so disparate from how things should be. It makes us very disconnected from it. And when we get our food from our local farmer or local hunted game or and such, we become kind of more spiritually connected to the land. And I love, when we do our nature walks here in the CoSM nature field, we're always kind of pointing at, oh, look at that plant, that's burdock root. Those roots really help aerate the soil, or oh, look at that garlic mustard. You can make pesto with that. It's just an amazing way to really it's very grounding, and I think that's something that permaculture can really help us get back to: localization to the natural world that surrounds us, which I think is kind of subsequently a cure to the kind of spiritual malaise that comes about with being separated from the natural world.
I love that perspective. That's really powerful. And in some ways, permaculture can be seen as a series of connection practices. Mm-hmm. And certainly there's an incredible education that comes from growing your own food. And there's also so much benefit from supporting your local farmer and meeting people in your community and paying them for their work to help you to be really healthy. And local food, is so much more nutrient dense. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we get caught in a trap with the globalization of the food supply of sort of feeling like it's all about weight and that more is more. And as it turns out, on a really relocalized scale, less is almost always more. And local food is, 5 to 15 times more nutrient dense. So if you're paying double to pay your friend down the street to grow the food, and you're getting food that's 10 times more nutrient dense, you're actually getting way better financial value, in addition to the benefit of cultivating a healthy community and a set of interdependent relationships where mm-hmm. you're supporting and being supported by the people that you live with. Mm-hmm. So it's a really powerful process that I think many people are on that journey of returning to a certain type of nature connection.
Yeah. And I think permaculture offers a radically new way to think of money. I think money is a way of voting. You certainly vote with your dollar. It's perhaps the most powerful form of voting, where, you might want to spend less money to get more food down at, the franchised grocery store, and you might get more pounds of kale per dollar, but you're sacrificing nutrient density. And that really is the name of the game. You need to kind of think about the density of your food rather than the volume of your food. And when you spend a little bit, you perceive it as you're spending more money on local food, but actually not only are you bolstering your local economy, but you're getting more value in the form of nutrients. So I think that's a great reframing that I would urge anyone to kind of take away from this. It might feel like you're kind of spending more money, but actually you're getting more value.
Exactly. It's interesting where money's a bridge to other things, because money in itself is not really anything that anyone wants. People want the things that they feel like or have experienced that money can buy for them. And here at CoSM, we're really trying to provide a lot of those things directly, which is community connection, creative empowerment, artistic liberation, and having experiences with other people that are totally empowering our passion mm-hmm. and our excitement about life, and maybe even helping us to cultivate and surface our gifts and share them with others. And these are the things a lot of people take extra time to earn money to trade that money for these experiences that really fulfill them on a deeper way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of the reframing for money in permaculture is looking at what do you want the money for,
Mm-hmm.
and how can you get those things without needing money? How can you skip that step instead of going out and chasing money and then coming back and spending money on that thing? So really what we're cultivating with the Visionary Permaculture program here at CoSM is an opportunity for people to get connected to themselves and each other and nature in a really unique and creative way that takes them out of a certain cycle of sort of chasing down money in order to spend it on other things.
Yeah, totally. And I think, a lot of people hear permaculture and they might just think, oh, kind of system design for gardening or landscaping. But I think that the intersection between permaculture and economics is really where kind of permaculture shines brightly in what is unique about it. This biomimetic approach to something that we don't often think as something like that is a part of nature, like economics. You talk a little bit about in this book about designing currencies that become less valuable as they're hoarded. Like it's money that you want to spend as fast as possible to keep it circulating, much like kind of running water never goes stale. And I think that in our country right now with our fiat currency, that there is inflation. It does get less valuable as you hold it, but there are so many incentives for people to kind of hoard their wealth and keep it out of circulation and kind of like bury it and kind of keep it locked away, when I think permaculture can help us kind of redesign a new economy that focuses on it puts the current back in currency, I think.
That's awesome. I totally love that. Yeah, really, the empowerment with all of this stuff in permaculture is deepening realization that we're all designers and that we're engaged in a design process. And sometimes in the modern era, that design process can be done for us through major media, kind of telling us what to do or attracting us to certain decisions. And it really gives the individual their power back, I think, to cultivate our own skills as effective designers and get more tools in our toolbox. So when we're trying to make decisions about how to move forward with a relationship or with a passion project or with our livelihood for that matter, or even our journey of making the money so that we can get the things that we need. The idea of becoming a more effective designer is really liberating and empowering for people to support them to really make their own decisions based on their own unique life context and their own unique vision for themselves. And in many ways, we're doing that at CoSM in helping people to design their creative practices and encouraging people to think about, like, what are you passionate about? Is it music? Is it writing? Is it gardening or dancing? And how can you design your own curriculum? How can you design your own learning journey that support you to continually skill up in a really practical way that moves you directly towards the realization of your goals and continually becoming the person that you really want to be? So I'm curious about your reflections. You designed this podcast and have designed a lot of the education opportunities at CoSM to learn and share. But what do you feel about becoming a better designer in that journey?
Well, I think, and I'll tie in kind of permaculture with this too, it's about finding kind of power in diversity. Where when you look at a garden or you look at plants, each plant is different, right? But it offers something unique that no other plant offers, right? And I think so much of any of our journeys is finding what is unique about us and kind of offering it. Benjamin Franklin talked about the importance of offering your gifts in the world, because what use is a sundial in the shade? Right? So there's something unique about every person. And I think it's really important to recognize that and try to offer it to the world in the best way possible, much like a unique plant in the garden offers the kind of ecosystem of that garden something very unique. And I think just with the podcast, the goal is to kind of create a platform to amplify what is unique and kind of what is diverse about each person, to help bring their gifts to the world. I think that's kind of what CoSM is totally doing well. And those gifts so often manifest as creative output. It's like, as an artist, we are all trying to find our own original voice, our own creative voice. Artists hate dogma. Artists hate plagiarism. Artists hate copying what other people are doing. There's so much emphasis on finding originality, finding what you can say to the world that no one else can say. And I think that is kind of a microcosmic expression of speciation. Every species becomes this unique thing, and it finds its niche. And I think we are all, of course, we are all the same species, but we are also all trying to find our own unique niche to add to the world, and I hope that my niche can be helping other people express what is valuable about their niche, perhaps.
That's so great. I love that. There's a quote I've always loved from Leonardo da Vinci that said, "The purpose of life is to find your gift, and the meaning of life is to give it away."
Totally.
And I feel like to bring it back to economics, permaculture is very much about cultivating a gift economy, whereby surfacing and cultivating and sharing our own unique gifts with other people in exchange for them doing the same for us, we create a really collaborative and cooperative community experience and even economic experience where we're trading and bartering and becoming interdependent with other people. And I think that's part of the purpose of permaculture, is to cultivate that type of community where we're all really in this creative collaborative process of sharing and exchanging our gifts and passions. So thanks for supporting so many people to surface and share their gifts.
Yeah, of course. And, here's a very meta question that I'd like to turn back to you is, if you could really just, in your mind's eye, see the Earth as a permaculture utopia, what does the future look like if permaculture principles become integrated and ubiquitous in the way that human beings go about our affairs?
That's great. I always think to Terence McKenna's Archaic Revival,
Totally.
And how the future, the harmonious, sustainable, visionary future, takes a lot of pieces from the harmonious, peaceful, visionary past, and that we are able to recognize the gift of plants and animals and the ecosystem and the climate, and allow nature to do what it does best, which is cleanse the air and the water and cycle nutrient and provide for the needs of all life on the planet. So the ultimate permaculture future is really supporting the gift of all living things to be able to give and share their gift, and finding some kind of harmonious balance of give and take where we're providing the space and fulfilling the needs of each other. So it's pretty radical, but it's also pretty simple in many ways, that the permaculture future is radically relocalized for life, where we're creating space to provide for our own needs locally, and providing space for plants and animals to totally live and not be under threat. And it's also very global. I feel like it's allowing this global community to come forward and to share our gifts and wisdom. And in many ways, this book is a global collaboration. There's so many elders and permaculture pioneers from different continents that are also lineage bearers for tons of indigenous traditions as well. And by sharing the collective knowledge with each other and cultivating this sort of planetary consciousness, we can understand how we can create peace and how we can create harmony and how we can make space for the next level of life on Earth to flourish. So I really imagine a future where there's food and medicine and art and culture are being fully generated locally while being informed by and supported globally.
Yeah, game theorists talk about finite games and infinite games. And finite games are, they have an end and they have a winner, and they're kind of contained. And of course, if there's a winner, there's a loser. Then there's the infinite games, which are the kind of games you play for the purpose of keeping the game moving. The game never ends, and there are no winners. They're only perpetuators, perhaps. And the goal is to play the game in a way that allows you to continue to play the game. And I think that is, on many levels, what permaculture aims for us to do. It's like, is our society an infinite game or a finite game? Well, if we approach value in this very extractive way, where we're just kind of sucking up resources without there being like a cyclical metabolism to it all, then it's inevitably a finite game. But an infinite game perhaps is one that, if we play it, the earth gets healthier. Imagine that. Imagine if all of human affairs kind of had a bioremediation element to it, and we use the cycles of nature to its benefit, where we're not extracting value from nature, but the way we live our lives adds health to the planet. I think that really is utopia, because it's the game that never ends. And I don't know about anyone else, but I want to keep playing this game. I'm having a lot of fun.
I love that. It makes me think of one of my teachers, Toby Hemingway, who kind of looks at resources on Earth in three different ways. There's degenerative resources, that when we use them, they get used up. They're hard to replace. And also, when we extract them and use them, they destroy everything, including ourselves. Oil, nuclear energy, a lot of fossil fuels. It's a really messy process, and it's created this environmental crisis that we're in. And then there's sustainable resources, which is like energy from the wind or the sun or the tides. We use gravity for dams. And sustainable energy, when we use it, it doesn't get used up. The only issue with sustainable energy is that because we're so at the beginning of becoming technologically advanced, because we've stepped out of this process of living in harmony with nature and begun a technological ascent to becoming sort of starfaring, because we're so early on that journey, our technology for harvesting sustainable resources is not sustainable at all. Windmills and dams and solar panels are based on the extractive, degenerative resources on the planet. And so the sustainable resources aren't sustainable. So they're a nice stepping stone from degenerative resources, but ultimately they're not sustainable. And the third category of resources is regenerative resources. These are things that when you use them, the world around you actually gets better, healthier, more connected. And that's how nature's been designed. I mean, you leave nature on its own, it takes care of business. The more we let nature grow back and turn into a forest, it's cleansing the air and the water and cycling nutrient and fulfilling the core functions of nature, which happen to be addressing all of the pressing planetary problems. And that's how everything in nature is designed, like our minds and our cultures, even our muscles. It's like the more that we use our muscles, the more that we use our brains engaging in podcasts like this, the stronger, healthier, and more dynamic that they become. And if we stop using them, our muscles atrophy, our brains get lazy. So we're really looking towards nature's resources and harnessing the regenerative power of nature. And that's really at the core of permaculture, is turning people into seeing how nature's already able to address problems, provide energy, provide resources, provide food, without destroying itself. And so that's the big turning point, is we're turning from this society based on degenerative resources that are responsible for the toxification and destruction of the ecosystem, and moving beyond sustainable resources into regenerative ones, and letting the power of nature itself, which we're a part of, address these problems. And as you say, create this regenerative future where the longer that we do these things, the better everything gets.
So this textbook, in a lot of ways, is a manual to the infinite game. And thank you so much for providing it. And I think that's a good place to wrap up. Can you tell us a little bit more about just kind of any final comments, or where you would direct people? Kind of what are the action steps that people can take from this podcast?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Here at CoSM, we have different offerings that you and I are a part of, and we're going to be reopening later this year. And people can come here and get connected and interact with like-minded community. We do nature service days, giving people the opportunity to plant bulbs and to do service projects with community on the land. We're opening up more programs to learn permaculture in a transformative setting with other people. And we provide so many podcasts and broadcasts thanks to you, and also free downloadable resources like the book, which is part of a toolkit that includes a card deck and a card game. And these things are all available for free online. But ultimately, the next step, the reframe of permaculture, is understanding that as a designer yourself, you're on this ongoing learning journey. At the heart of permaculture is lifelong learning. And the action step for all of you is to continue to formalize that, to externalize that, to set learning goals, to think about what skills that you still want to get and cultivate, to surface more of your own gifts and learn how to share them effectively with other people. And to really think about your life as a curriculum, as an education that you're guiding and you're directing. So for me, it's like listen to more podcasts, read more books, take more classes, plant more gardens, engage in more direct experiences of learning and skilling up so that you can become an even more engaged and empowered designer of your own life.
Thanks again for listening to the CoSM Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on future podcasts and broadcasts. Check out the CoSM shop for visionary apparel, books, and artwork that will bring beauty to any space. See you next time.